Hello everyone, I'm Batpan, a bat who gives food to a crocodile. In today's video, we're gonna see how to make a gamma slider like Fierce to Fathom in Unity. We'll cover everything you might need for a gamma slider like Fierce to Fathom, like this slider, the numbers changing, and saving it and loading it in another scene. This video will be put inside a series of videos covering Unity tips and tricks, and also in another series of videos covering functions from the game Fierce to Fathom in Unity. I published my own retro horror game called Fractured Psyche. It's a psychological horror game. If you're into this stuff, you can actually check it out with the link in the description. It's both on Windows and Android. All the files used and created in this video are available on my GitHub. You can again get to the link in the description. With all that being said, let's put on the mask and begin. So I've made the gamma slider like Fierce to Fathom. It increases and decreases like this, and we're gonna create something like this in the following minutes. So what I have right now here is a slider and some text. It is saying gamma, and this is 1, the number, and we also have a slider. So the things you need for this video are, first, we need a slider, of course. So if you don't know how to create a slider, I'll show you. I just deactivate this canvas. We'll add a UI canvas. Be careful, make the settings like me. Scale with the screen size 1920 by 1080. Put this one at 0.5. So its scale is okay. Then you right click on the canvas, UI slider. Now your slider is like a little, so you go to this scene view, click on this 2D. Then select your slider again, press F to go to your slider, press F again to go back, you see this. You can press T to go to this rect tool, or you can click here. Then you take one end, and once you're scaling it, you can hold Alt, so you scale it on both axes, and you leave it where you're satisfied. I'm satisfied here. Yeah, that is it. You can just change the handle texture if you want, anything you want to use. I can use this input field, so it is like better. And for this text is actually very easy as well. So you can UI. I'm gonna add a text mesh pro, and you see it is here. I'm gonna call it gamma, and I'm gonna again go to this scene view, and again I'm gonna scale it a little, and I'm gonna make it bold. I'm gonna make it like auto size, make it like my auto size. And I'm gonna make it max, like 72 is okay. It is a maximum value. This is just setting up the UI. You can scale it anyhow you want. And I'm gonna make it, and I'm gonna put it where I want it. Like this is okay. Here is okay. Then you can duplicate this. So right click on your text, duplicate, and I'm gonna this time write 1, and I'm gonna change the X position until it is like right here. You see it is like this, 0.5. Maybe put it like here. So 1, center. Put it as center, so when you change the value, it won't change a lot. So you see it is 1, it is 0.5. Yeah, that is it. Now we are done with the UI part. We can just deactivate this canvas and activate the canvas I've made previously. It actually doesn't matter. What you're gonna again change in your slider is you're gonna go to your slider, go down this slider, and inside this min value and max value, you have to start at 0.5 and max at 2 and put this value at 1. If you don't do it, we'll actually can't do it in the script, but you can actually do it in here as well, just in case. And yes, that is everything for the slider. The next part we're gonna use is we need post-processing for this video. It is actually a free asset you can use. You gotta go to your window, package manager, and inside Unity registry, you can search for post-processing. Now I already added to my project, but if you go to it, you'll find installed here. Just click on it, add everything it needs to your project. Once you added this to your project, you have to go to your camera after you added post-processing, add component, write post, and add a post-process layer first. Then you can click on this to select your camera. Then for the layer, you're gonna layer everything, or if you have specific layers, you can select that as well. Then we need to again go to this add component and add a post-process volume this time, and click on is global, put the weight at 1. And if you don't have a post-process profile yet, you can click on this new to create a profile for yourself. Then you gotta add effect. You can add multiple effects, anything you want. For example, we can add ambient occlusion, but you have to click on this all, so it activates all of them, and you can just change the intensity. As you see, it changes the darkness of the screen. But the thing we need is not ambient occlusion. You actually have to have this for this effect to work. You're gonna again go to your add effect, Unity, and just add color grading. Be careful, this part is important. So you're gonna click on this all, so it is, all of them are activated, and you don't have to change anything. You just have to activate it and just put this on. If it is on off, just put it on. That is everything we need for this post-processing. You can, not use the ambient occlusion. I just, activated it for the looks of it. But this color grading is very important. You actually have to have it for this effect to work. So now we're done with the editor part. We can go ahead, create a script that changes our gamma slider. So I already have a script here that I tested this out, but I'm gonna create a folder called scripts. Inside it, I'm going to create a new C# script. I'm going to call it Freeze to Fathom Gamma Slider. Double click to open it up. First things we're going to cover are the things we need to add above here, the things we're going to use. So we're going to use a slider to actually reference a slider in here. We need to say using Unity engine.ui with the capital UI. So we can reference a slider in here. Then we're gonna say using, this thing is important as well, Unity engine.rendering.post-processing. And we need to add one more thing because we want to add a text mesh pro in here, because our subtext, the text that the number changes, is text mesh pro. So up here you're gonna say using TM Pro. And that is everything we need for the using above. Then we go down inside our actual script. So the first reference we need is a public post-process volume. The volume we added, as you see in here, let me just show you the volume we created. This one, we need the reference to this one. So public post-process volume, we're gonna call it volume. Then we need a reference to our slider. So public slider, I'm gonna call it slider with the small s. Then we need a reference to color grading. So private color grading is color grading. I'm gonna write it like this with a small c at the first. It shouldn't be exactly written like this, so I just made this one smaller. I made it like this so I can reference it inside our script. You'll see in the upcoming minutes, no worries. This thing that I'm gonna add is actually for the saving, so you can save the value, and inside your scenes and your game you just load this gamma settings, and we're gonna save it using player prefs. For that you need a key name, for example player prefs.setInt, for example. As you see, it needs a string key and an int value. So for the key you have to give it a name, for example gamma, and for the value just for example say 1. And we're gonna reference this up here so it has a value that doesn't change. So we're just gonna say private constant. We made it constant so it won't change, and string. So private constant string. I'm gonna call it, for example, preference key, and I'm gonna call it game gamma. And that is the key name we used for our player prefs. You will see in the upcoming minutes, no worries at all. Then we need a reference to our text mesh pro. So public text mesh pro UGUI has to be exactly like this. I'm gonna call it gamma underline text. And that is every reference we need right now. We don't need void update, we can remove it. Before changing and setting stuff in void start, I'm gonna go ahead and create the change values and applying gamma voids, and I'll explain it to you. Then I'll come back and add stuff for the void start. So the first thing we're gonna check is the void on slider changed. So void on slider changed. Be careful, this is very important. So float, I'm gonna call it. It's gonna take a float value, and the float is going to be called also value, and you'll see what I mean. So inside here, before continuing this script, we also need another void to apply the gamma that we change. So each time you change your slider, this void is going to be called, and this void is going to apply the gamma. But applying the gamma is going to actually be put inside a new a void, so we don't confuse it. So I'm just going to say public void, I'm going to call it apply gamma, and it also is going to take a float, and the float is going to be called value. Down here we're going to check if our color grading is not equal to null. If our color grading is equal to null, we cannot change anything, so we don't change anything, so we don't get an error. So we just add a null check in here. We say color grading is equal to null. If our color grading is equal to null, we just return and don't, do the things down here. So it is actually a very simple null check to prevent any errors. If we actually have a color grading, we go down here and we, change the gamma. For the gamma, we can just say color grading dot post exposure dot value equal to value -1. Why I added -1 is because I want to start at 0 and end at 2 or 1 or anything. Also, when I change the value, I want to change this text here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say gamma text dot text equal to value to string. The thing is, let me just show you first, then I'll fix the bug. It's not a bug, it's just something that to make it better and more beautiful. I'll show you in the following minutes, no worries. So we're done with this apply gamma thing. When does this void gets called? It gets called every time we move our slider. So what should we do when we move our slider? We want to change our gamma settings. To change our gamma settings, we have to call this void. So we say apply gamma, and for the value we just give it the value, which is, so these two are kind of the same thing. And again, when we give it the value, we can just save the value. We set the float here, so we can just save it and load it in the next scene. So we say player prefs dot set float, exactly like this. So it's gonna save our value, set float. It's gonna get this preference key, which is game gamma, which is constant and doesn't change, and it's gonna give it the value, and we load it in another scene. Then we're just gonna say player prefs dot save. So we just save everything. That is everything for the on slider change. No worries if you don't understand it, I'll again explain it. After making these two, we're gonna go inside our void start and set up the things and tell it to change the gamma settings based on the slider change. We can add some null checks up here, and so the game doesn't break. So we're just gonna first check if we don't have a slider, we cannot do anything. We cannot change the gamma settings. So we just return. If we actually have a slider, we can continue. Down here, we check if we have this post-processing volume. We say if volume is null. If the volume is null, we can search for it to find it. So we say volume is equal to find object of type post-process volume. So what it does is, if we don't set our volume in the inspector tab, if we forget to do it, it searches our whole scene for a post-process volume. If it actually finds it, it continues. If it doesn't, we come down here and again check if we have a volume. If we don't, so it means we don't have any volume in our scene and we won't continue. So we say we return. So we say if volume is null, or we kind of have a volume but we don't have a profile yet. The profile is this one, as I showed you. This is the profile. If we don't have a profile set yet, we cannot do any changes, so we just return. So we say if volume.profile is equal to null, we just return again. These are some null checks. You don't have to exactly 100% do it. These are some null checks. So if you don't have this gamma settings applied, your game doesn't break. So it just returns and doesn't run all the other codes to break your game. Again, we're gonna try to get the color grading, this thing we referenced up here. As I told you, we're gonna look for a value like this. So right now we try to get the color grading from the volume, post-processing volume. So we're just gonna say volume dot profile dot try get settings out. We're gonna get the color grading that we referenced up here. And again, we're gonna check for a null value. We say if color grading is equal to null, we just return. These are all, again, I said these are all null checks to stop your game from breaking. So down here, we're just gonna say slider change and load value for the save. So we save it and load it again in here. So we say for the min value, as I said, if you don't set it in the inspector, we can set it here. So slider.min value, I'm gonna again put it at 0.5, and for the max value, I'm gonna put it at 2. My slider is gonna always start at 1, so slider.value is 1, and with that my text is gonna exactly be the same thing. So gamma text.text equal to 1. Since it is always starting from 1, we don't have to say .value.toString, but you can just do it. You say value equal to slider.value.toString. Yeah, that is it. This part is important. The thing I'm gonna say right now is important, so be careful. This is the part that we're gonna tell our slider to change our gamma based on the slider value. So here we're gonna see, we're just gonna say slider dot on value changed. On value change is actually a thing for the slider that's gonna, you know, run a function each time the slider value changes. Dot add listener, and for this add listener we're just gonna, you know, each time the slider value changes, we're gonna call this on slider changed void. So just call it in here. So on slider changed void. Don't put it here, it just gives it the float itself. You don't have to give it the float, and that is it. So what this line does is it's gonna check each time the slider value changes. It's gonna tell our code to run this one, and when it runs this one, it runs, you know, apply gamma, and it applies our gamma and changes our text. I'm gonna again explain this script to you guys so you guys don't confuse it at all. What this void does is it's actually a void, and it takes a float value. This value is actually the slider value that we just gave up here. It gets a value, and it first checks if we actually have a color grading. Color grading is this one, this thing that I told you to put on all and has to be on. If you don't have it, if you don't add it here, it's not gonna run anything, because we told if it is equal to null. If you don't have it, we just return, and when we return, these two lines won't, you know, activate. If we have a color grading, then we can continue. Down here we make our gamma, which is like our post exposure in the post processing settings, value equal to value minus 1. To start, you know, to end it with the 0. This is not important. This is not important for the explanation. It's just a value that I found out that was, you know, actually cool and worked well. So I just took the value, the slider value, and I minused it by 1. Then it also changes our gamma text, the text we created. This one here based on the slider value. So if the slider is on 2, this one is going to be set to 2. This was for our apply gamma. Again, we go on to our slider changed. So inside here, this void gets called each time our slider moves, as you see up here. So what do we want to do when our slider moves? We want to, you know, change our gamma settings. So to change our gamma settings, we're going to call this void. So we just did, and we save the value. For example, if the slider is on 2, we save the 2, and in another scene, we just load this, you know, value, and we just set it to that 2 thing, and we go inside void start where everything is set. We first check if we have a slider. If we don't continue. We just return, and we don't have a gamma settings. If our volume is equal to null, we first try to, you know, find it in our scene if we forgot to reference it, but I recommend referencing it. If we actually find it, if we actually find the volume, so we down here again check if we find the volume. If we didn't, we just return, we don't have a gamma setting. Or if we find it but it doesn't have a profile, again we return, and we don't have a gamma setting. Then we go to volume, profile, and we try to get the color grading settings from it. As I showed you here, we try to get this one, and if we didn't get the color grading, we just return, and we don't have a gamma settings again. Down here we just change the slider value. Min value is 0.5. As I told you, for the slider I said I put it at min value 0.5. You can put it here or change it through the script. Max value is 2, and the default value is 1. So slider.value is at 1. And for the text, again, we just, you know, make it equal to 1, because our value is always 1 at the start. It makes our text, this text, equal to 1. And this part is important. It says if our slider changes, any movement on the slider actually calls this function. This line does this. This one runs this, and it changes our gamma setting. We can go to our camera. We can just create a new game object. I'm going to call it gamma controller, and I'm going to give the script to it. It needs a post-process volume. You can click on this circle to find it, or you can drag and drop your camera with the post-process volume. We also need a slider. I'm just going to give it the slider. We need a gamma text. This is the gamma text, and that is it. We can go ahead and check it out. As you see, it is at 1. You increase it, it is like this. You decrease it, it is like this. You remember the thing I said about this value.toString that I told you that I'll fix in the following minutes? It was this one. We don't need to see all these numbers when we're changing it. It is ugly. To fix this, it's actually very easy. You're gonna go to this gamma text, the text settings. When you say value.toString, just gonna add it here, F1. That is everything you're gonna add, and also be sure to add it up here, F1. And as you see, it is gonna write our decimal number to only 1, so it is like 1.1 and not 1.12, 4, 6, 7 something. So you see, it is a 1, and you see it increases, it is like 2, and yeah, that is it. That is everything. So you see, this is a gamma setting that you can use. It's actually pretty fun. I enjoyed, making it, and yeah, that is it. Every time you move it, it's gonna get saved. This video actually is a long video, but I'll try, explain the loading it pretty fast as well. So I'm gonna, create a new scene. I'm gonna call it save test. I recorded for like 34 minutes now, but I know I'm inside edit, I'm gonna make it like 20 minutes. So I'm gonna cut a lot of parts. No worries, but yeah, so I'm gonna go to my save test. In here, again, I'm gonna add a post-processing layer and volume. So everything, this volume, you can add the post-processing volume you made is global. It has color grading. So what we wanna do is, I'm gonna create a new C# script. I'm gonna call it Fierce to Fathom, load gamma settings. We're inside here. So loading the gamma settings is actually very easy as well. So what you're gonna do is, inside your void stuff, we don't need void update, we can remove it. We need a reference to our post-processing volume. So up here, we're just gonna say using Unity engine.rendering post-processing. So we can get a reference to our post-processing volume. So we say public post-processing volume. I'm gonna call it volume. And we also need a private color grading like before, and that is everything we need right here. So inside void start, we can add those null checks, but I'm not gonna do it. We're just gonna find the color grading. So we say volume dot profile dot try get settings out color grading. So it tries to get the color grading. Down here we can add a null check. So we say if it is equal to null, we just return. Then down here, we don't have to add some slider and stuff. We just have to get this save value and just give it that value. Create a float up here. I'm gonna call it saved. It is equal to player prefs dot get float. You remember the float we said, pref underline. We also need a reference up here saying private constant string for our preference key, which is equal to game gamma. Be careful, the naming should be exactly the same thing as the save you have made up here. The capital and the small versions of the letter matter. So we can just, for the float, we just get the pref key. If there wasn't any preferences key, anything in here, to prevent the bug from happening, we just give it a default value. So if we didn't save anything, we just get 1. So our game doesn't break. So our save value is equal to our pref key. The pref key is the slider value that we saved in our gamma slider, and we just get it and we just set it in here. So we say color grading dot post exposure dot value equal to saved, again minus 1f, and that is everything you have to do to load the value. So we can go ahead and check it out. You can add an object called gamma controller, give your script to it. It needs a post-processing volume. You can give your camera to it. Now it is added. Let's go to our other scene first. So I change it to 2, so it is brighter. This is saved now. I can stop it, other scene, and when I start it, it's gonna be brighter. As you see, it is now brighter because it loaded our gamma slider. So that was how to make a gamma slider like Fierce to Fathom in Unity. I tried to explain the code as simple as possible and try to cover everything you might need when you need a gamma slider. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, a like would be very amazing. You can subscribe to see more contents like this. It would actually help me a lot. You can also tell me anything in the comment section below. I'll be very happy to answer it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.